I wanted to earn some extra spending money so I could go out and have more fun. So, I looked around on Facebook Marketplace for odd jobs in my neighborhood back when you could still post jobs on Facebook. After mowing a few lawns, I wanted to do something less strenuous, and that's when I found an opportunity to dog sit for a guy for just a single night and make $50. I contacted the man for the details, and a few days later, when he said he needed to go out of town overnight, I met him at the house. It was an older house, probably built in the 70s. The lawn was overgrown, and the paint was chipping, but other than that, it didn't look like it was about to fall apart or anything. When I met the man at the door, I was taken aback by how tall he was, probably 6'6", where I only stand about 5'10". He looked like he was from the 70s too, with long, greasy gray hair and a skunky smell. But he seemed pretty chill overall. He introduced me to his dogs, 2 rambunctious Rottweiler sisters. He warned me that his dogs would probably go a little crazy for missing him, but he just wanted me to make sure they didn't tear the house up. All I had to do was leave food and water out for them and let them out into the backyard every few hours. Other than that, I could make myself at home. After only talking for a few minutes, the owner left. Immediately, I started getting comfortable and looking around the house. It was kind of a mess. The man clearly lived alone and had stopped caring a long time ago. He probably inherited the house from his parents and just never moved. I decided I would just spend the night on the couch and started to burn away the hours watching TV. The dogs never seemed like they fully trusted me, but they weren't aggressive either. Just unsure and distant. I was glad they weren't mean because I honestly didn't think I could control 2 fully grown Rottweilers if I had to. However, a few hours into the night, their demeanor changed. They never settled into bed, and as the minutes passed, they grew more and more restless. I got up to let the dogs out into the backyard, but strangely, as I stood from the couch, they rushed over to the front door. I was confused by this, as their owner said he never walked them, so why did they want to go to the front door? They were whining and wagging their tails, like they expected somebody to open it and come through. When that thought crossed my mind, I felt a little uneasy. I became suddenly alert. I slowly walked up to the door and checked through the peephole, breathing a sigh of relief when I didn't see anyone. I teased the dogs for being silly and called them to go outside into the backyard. I opened the sliding glass door and called them again until they reluctantly sauntered off into the yard. I watched them for a moment before closing the door to leave them out there for a few minutes while I went to the bathroom. This bathroom had a small window facing the backyard with frosted glass, so you couldn't see through it clearly, but there was still some light coming through from the motion-activated lights outside. As I was standing in front of the toilet, I noticed a shadow walk across the window. It startled me so badly that I flinched and accidentally urinated all over the toilet seat. I finished up quickly and left the mess for a moment, knowing that I needed to check out what I had just seen. I wasn't sure if it was a person, but it looked like one. This being the second weird thing to happen within a few minutes, I preemptively dialed 911. As I walked back to the sliding glass door and looked into the yard, trying to see if there was anybody snooping around without opening the door, I noticed there weren't any trees outside that bathroom window, and it was too tall for it to have been a dog. So my suspicions seemed to snowball into a worst-case scenario. I let the call to 911 go through and quietly told them what was going on. I'm alone in an unfamiliar house dog sitting, and I think somebody is trying to break into the house because they think nobody is home. I then had enough time to whisper the address to them before I heard a noise from inside the house. It sounded like the garage. I told the operator to hold on and I put my phone on mute. I remember them reminding me at the last second not to go investigating anything, but I felt like I knew what I was doing. I crept up to the door leading to the garage and put my ear against it, but I didn't hear anything else. I wanted to check it visually though, so I slowly opened the door. Suddenly, the doorknob was ripped out of my hand and it flew open. The owner of the house was towering over me in the doorway, holding a huge knife, and before I had time to react, he grabbed me by the collar and yanked me over so that my face was within an inch of the blade. Then he started dragging me into the garage and over to the door leading to the cellar. "Get in there," he said, holding a huge knife before me. Not knowing what else to do, I complied. I was now descending into the horrifying darkness of the cellar with the man holding me at knife point, a mere step behind me. When I got to the bottom, I strained to see, but there wasn't much down there, just a bunch of junk piled up in the corners. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there was a camera on a tripod. Before I could react, I was kicked in the back and fell to the ground. "Don't get up," the man commanded me as he walked over to the tripod and turned on the camera. "I'll be paying you $50, right?" I was too scared to say anything back, all I could do was nod. Then he grabbed a bag full of coins from a nearby shelf, opened it, and poured the entire thing on the ground in front of me. It looked to be $50, but it was all in quarters. "Now pick it up," he said. I followed his command and started picking up each one by hand, but he quickly corrected me, "No, not with your hands. Pick them up with your mouth and make sure the camera sees." I let out a whimper as tears of humiliation and fear started to well up, but I had no other choice. This guy was way too big for me to fight. I got on my knees and bent over, kissing the filthy cellar floor until I managed to get one of the quarters between my teeth. At that point, confused and dreading what I knew he would say next, I looked up at him and asked, "What now?" "Now eat them," was his response. I didn't think my heart could sink any lower, but in that moment, it did. I whimpered again and let the quarter fall back onto my tongue. Then I forced myself to swallow it, nearly gagging as it went down. I looked up at the man again, about to plead with him to stop all of this, but he wasn't interested in listening. "Keep going until they're all gone. You want to get paid, don't you?" There was nothing I could do to challenge him. I just had to wait and hope that help would come. I didn't forget that my phone was still on with 911 in my pocket, but I had no idea how long it would take for them to get there. In truth, I think I was forced to eat about $10 worth of quarters before the cops started to bust into the house. As soon as the homeowner heard them coming, he turned tail and ran. It was too late though. They had the whole house surrounded and they got him right away. Then they eventually found me in the cellar. I dry heaved, wretched, and sobbed like a pitiful mess. Swallowing one quarter is fine, but swallowing 40 quarters is a different story. I had to be taken to the hospital and put to sleep for surgery so they could clear the blockage. I was still finding change in the toilet bowl for weeks after that, which tends to put an unfortunate note of humor on my trauma from the experience. But I guess I can only cry or laugh about it, and I know which one I'd rather do. After all, I'm only alive because that man forgot how cell phones work.
A few weeks ago, my neighbor asked me to dog sit at her house while she went out of town for a few days. My neighbor is a single woman who lives alone, and she jokingly told me that she adopted a dog named Bella so that she could have the scary dog privilege. This was funny because Bella is completely blind. However, Bella had a great sense of direction around the house and could use her other senses quite well. The owner doesn't normally go on trips like this because she hates steering Bella away from her familiar territory, and she couldn't leave her alone because of her fear of abandonment. But in this case, there was a funeral that she had to attend, so that's where I came in. I was basically supposed to live at her house for 3 days and 2 nights to make sure the dog was getting all the attention she needed, plus the usual dog sitting tasks. Bella herself was a large boxer with a lot of energy, and despite the blindness, she was a very sweet and well-mannered dog. My neighbor trusted me since she knew my parents, and aside from asking that I spent as much time with Bella as I could. The only other major thing she pointed out was that her bedroom door had to stay shut while she has gone. My neighbor trusted me since she knew my parents, and aside from asking that, I spent as much time with Bella as I could. The only other major thing she pointed out was that her bedroom door had to stay shut while she was gone. The first day went perfectly fine. I got Bella to feel pretty comfortable around me, and I did everything I was supposed to. I ended up falling asleep on the couch with Bella next to me. I was in the house all throughout the next morning too. until around lunchtime, and my friends invited me to hang out for the day. I hadn't left the house at all yet, so I figured I could be away for a few hours and everything would be alright. My friends picked me up from the house because only one of us had a car at the time. Then we hung out until sunset. They wanted to stay out late, but I made them take me back so I wouldn't have a guilty conscience about abandoning Bella. I had only been away for a few hours, but as soon as I got back into the house, I felt like I screwed up. Bella was acting completely different, like barking and growling and backing away from me. I figured this was her abandonment issues acting up, and I did the best I could to console her and regain her trust. Unfortunately, nothing I did seemed to put her at ease. She had no interest in eating her dinner with no response to the leash and no willingness to approach me, even when I called her name with treats in my hand. I decided to sit on the couch and watch TV until she calmed down. But several minutes later, Bella was acting the same way again. I noticed she seemed to be staring down the hallway even though she couldn't see, like she could sense something from the direction that was making her growl. I thought if I explored that area for her, then she would come down. So I walked down to the end of the hall. Bella followed me halfway, but she stopped right before her owner's bedroom door. She sniffed under the door for a few seconds, then out of nowhere, she went back to being just as aggressive as she was when I first walked in, barking and posturing. I knew I wasn't supposed to open that door, but I also knew that Bella wouldn't come down until she checked it out. Reluctantly, I turned the handle and cracked the door open. Bella pushed past right away and went a few steps into the bedroom, and became quiet and stopped to sniff the air intensely. Gradually, she inched closer to the bed, then stuck her snout underneath it. Immediately, she jumped back and started snarling and chomping at the air in front of her. All the hairs on her body were sticking up. My stomach began to churn, and I remember feeling a lump forming in my throat as I tried to call out to whatever Bella thought was there. "Hey, isn't my body there? You better not be." I received no reply, only more of Bella's barking. I knew I had to look. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone's flashlight and got down on my hands and knees to look under the bed from the doorway. That's when a pair of human eyes glared back at me, and a chill ran through my body as my fight or flight instinct kicked in. I stood up, grabbed Bella, carried her out of the room, slammed the door behind me, and locked us in the spare bedroom. I called the police immediately and waited anxiously for them to arrive. A few minutes later they came, but the intruder had already fled the same way they broke in through the bedroom window. Clearly, whoever they were, they thought the house would be empty and they had planned to hide until they could ambush the owner when she got back. Unfortunately, since I didn't get a good look at their face, the police weren't able to mount a successful search, obviously, due to the fact that there would be attackers still on the loose. My neighbor has purchased a thorough security system for their home. Hopefully, there's never a part 2 to this story.